Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the sunset safari. It's not sunrise anymore, it is in fact coming up on sunset here in the northeastern corner of beautiful South Africa. You are with WildEarth TV, you're on Safari Live. Camera, we have Andrew today. Hello, Andrew.
Hello.
James Henry is my name, and on the other vehicle, on foot, well, yes, so he's not on a vehicle at all, he's on his feet, is Leo Smith, followed closely by Brian Joubert and Stefan Winter-Farmer. In the final control, the two marvellous directors of Tara Dales and Louise Pavitt are looking after things from a technical point of view. Now, the northeast corner of South Africa, in which the world-famous and iconic Kruger National Park sits. Bathing in what has been a marvellous day, sitting at roughly 27 degrees centigrade or 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Northeast corner, lowland of South Africa, about 400 meters above sea level, about 1,300 feet above sea level. And we sit on the western fringes of the iconic Kruger National Park in what is known as the Sabi Sands. The Sabi Sands is a collection of private farms, and you'll hear us talk about Djuma, which is where we do the bulk of our safari viewing, and Arathusa off to the west of us there. 900 hectares of Djuma, 600 hectares of Arathusa. There's the car coming. I'm going to have to wrap this up and get going. You are on a live safari. Okay, that means that you are welcome to talk to us, and indeed we encourage you to do so. The questions at WildEarth TV if you're on the email, or hashtag Safari Live if you're tweeting, like that Cokie Franklin that we heard going quack, 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 quack just before we came live. I'm just going to move out of the way for these folks to get past us. Go. Everybody feels slightly nervous when they see the camera, of course. Okay, Tavonano. So, that's where we sit in the world, western fringes of the Kruger National Park, a small collection of private farms known as the Sabi Sands, and I'm sure it gets all a little bit confusing if you suddenly tune in and hear us talking about these different places that we're driving around, Djuma, Arathusa, lots of the other lodges around here, where we can't go, but where the animals are free to come and go as they please. And we're on a fairly straight road here. It's a cut line between us and a reserve north of us called Buffelshoek. To the south is Djuma, and all around 8 million acres of wilderness wonderland. Let's go and see what we can find. So this morning we had a marvelous sighting of the Solala Pride, which consists of 3 young male lions and 3 lionesses, one of whom has lost her tail, so they're pretty easily identifiable, and they were chasing a herd of about 300 buffalo. The buffalo ran away initially, and then they turned and gave chase to the lions, and the lions melted off into the bush, and that was the last we saw of them until this afternoon, when Leo Smith is now on foot looking for them. He hasn't found them yet as far as I'm aware, and so he will be checking with Brian and Steph, and they'll be seeing if they can find the lions. We are going towards Buffelshoek Dam. The buffalo have gone north of us to a place where they lost 3 or 4 of their number last week, called Sydney's Dam. We can't go there, but we're going to another watering hole called Buffelshoek Dam, just to the far east of the property. Now, it's a good idea to be around the dams at this time of the year because it's very dry. We're waiting for the first proper rains of the year. We haven't had them yet, of course, and so as the water is concentrating, so the animals' movements become more and more predictable. They have to go and drink, many of them, especially large animals like the buffalo and the elephants, and so we do see them quite a lot at the water, especially on a warm day. It's not very hot. 27 degrees or 80 degrees Fahrenheit for us is pretty mild, really. And Andrew was just saying how cool it is and how pleasant it was feeling this afternoon, and he's absolutely right. It does tend to get a huge amount hotter during this particular time of the year before the rains come. When we went live there, you probably noticed some antelope, and we did get the antelope, didn't we?
Yes.
There are some kudu, the large spiral-horned antelope called kudu, and they are a particularly beautiful antelope, probably one of the most beautiful ones that we get here. They're my second favorite. My first favorite is the nyala, a very close relative of the kudu. Now, as we go through this little drainage line here, you may lose signal, we may lose picture. Please do not fret. Do not turn your computer off or fling it at the wall. We will be back shortly if we lose you. I think you're still with us, as far as I'm aware. It's a huge amount of mammal life just yet, and you can see the weather is pretty cloudy, which is why it's pretty cool, and that's really nice for us. We're very pleased about that. Some bets about rain today. Andrew, you thought it was going to rain, didn't you?
I still do think so.
Yes, Andrew, I don't believe it's going to rain. The same way that I don't believe that Santa Claus is necessarily a real thing. I nearly said, I was nearly more definite about that last statement until I remembered that we have a number of very young viewers who ask us some wonderful questions, and we wouldn't want to leave them disillusioned with the events of the 25th of December. Definitely going to lose us as we go through the dip up ahead here. So I do apologize, but we will have you as soon as we get through the other side. And all around, you will notice that we watch roads very carefully for signs of tracks and certainly other signs of animals, such as dung. You may have noticed those few elephant droppings as we drove past them. We'll be looking constantly for signs, especially tracks. Perhaps those lines are following the buffalo into Buffalo. Especially this time of year, you will be actually tracking herds of buffalo. Up on the bend tracks, but nothing very fresh. Hold off talking now until we got through this dip. We're back. We always go black screen through that little hole in the floor there. It's very low down. Not surprising. How this works is that the aerial sticking out the back of the car there has to talk to a repeater which is on a very large tower, and it's pretty simple really. It's got to be line of sight. Otherwise the signal goes all wishy-washy, and through a dip like that it's just slightly too low for the repeater on the towers to see. Right, we are nearing the turn off to Buffelshoek Dam, where I'm hoping for a great plethora of diversity. Or whatever else, maybe a couple of birds. Lorraine in Missouri, all the way from Missouri. I haven't been to Missouri yet. It's wonderful when we hear about youngsters who are interested in the wild, and your son is a budding herpetologist. Well, that's very good news. And for those other younger viewers who are watching, a herpetologist is someone who likes reptiles and studies them. And you want to know, firstly, how many reptiles do we get in the Kruger National Park? The answer is I couldn't tell you exactly, but I would say in the region of about 50 species. No, probably a bit more, probably about 80 species. And then you also want to know what is the largest. Well, the largest, of course, is the Nile crocodile, an enormous beast of ancient build, basically a relic of the dinosaurs. Many millions of years old are the crocodiles, and they live very comfortably in this area, and mainly in the rivers, sometimes in the dams. And then the most venomous, well, it depends on who you talk to, but basically it's the boomslang or tree snake, and that is a hemotoxic snake. And while the bite will not hurt you, very tiny amounts of the venom will get into your blood and eventually cause you to hemorrhage from everywhere, internally and externally, and it absolutely will cause death. So that's the most venomous, but it's a very shy snake, and it's almost impossible to be bitten by one. I have one or two people. Sorry about that. We're back again. Dodgy signal in some areas. Oh, lots of hippopotami here in Buffelshoek Dam. Now, Andrew and I saw this little pod yesterday on foot. Can you see the terrapin there? Oh, he's fallen off. There was a terrapin standing on the back of one of those hippos. Let's see if it doesn't come back. A terrapin, everyone, for those of you who don't know, especially for our herpetologist friend, is a freshwater turtle. I can hear a squirrel going ballistic the other side of the dam. I'm just going to go a little bit forward on the wall here, see if we can't see what they're shouting at. Squirrels are very loud objectors to predators where they are. So they may have seen a snake, they may have seen a bird of prey, they may have seen a leopard. And they're shouting basically just to the other side of the dam where the inlet is in the trees beyond. And there's a lovely little pod of hippo there. There were 6 here yesterday, Andrew. I think there's 2 fewer. Right, we're just going to have a quick look. Do you see only 4? I see only 4.
4, yes, 4.
4 hippopotami. All right, let's leave these. Let's go and just see if we can't follow up on that sound of alarm-calling squirrels. Now, I have said this before, but it's important to reiterate. Alarm calls are the calls that animals give when they have seen something that wants to eat them. And with any luck, that squirrel has seen a leopard. That's what I'd like to see. Down there and have a look. Squirrels tend to be very unreliable alarm callers, though. They tend to shout about not a lot. Right, we come to the other side of the dam, and we're now having a look. We'll switch off just up ahead here and see if we can't hear the squirrels still alarm calling. So I can hear them just up ahead. There's a waterbuck, two waterbuck, one crossing the road there. Smelly animals. It's never a great sign when you're looking for a large cat. They're a bit big for leopard. Squirrels are going crazy around here. Let's just listen. We could look around and listen. The squirrel is in the tree just above us. I can't see it. Can you see it, Andrew? Where is it? Oh, there it is. It's on the kind of bottom branch that's there. You see it?
Yeah, I've got it.
Looking straight at the water. Definitely seen something, but because the waterbuck is still around, they're just behind us and through there. They're kind of through beyond the inlet of the dam. I wonder if it isn't a snake or something like that. Maybe our young herpetologist will get his wish. I'm just going to drive into the inlet here and see if there isn't a cat or something stalking. I don't see anything. Do you, Andrew?
Negative.
You don't see a great pride of leopards? Let's back out of here. Just keep an eye.
Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back on the vehicle with us.
So no further information, I'm afraid, on the leopards. But an interesting topic has been raised. Of course, one of the major things that anybody wants to see out here are the big cats. And leopards are one of them. And the other great cat, of course, is the lion. And just a little while back, well, not a little while back, about 25 years, 30 years ago. Dear, no, almost 40 years ago. Makes me a bit nervous to say that. Almost 40 years ago, there was a pride of lions found in an area called the Timbavati, about 50 kilometers north of here, called the white lions of the Timbavati. And they were what we call leucistic, so they had slightly blonder hair than the rest of the lions around the place. In fact, they were almost white, not albino, but very, very pale colored. And Miriam, you say you've just seen a documentary on them, and are they still around in the Kruger? They are actually. The genes persist. It doesn't seem to be a particularly, it doesn't affect the lions negatively at all, and so it has persisted in the population. I know there's a pride at Singita Lobombo, which is quite a long way, probably about 100 kilometers that way in a northeasterly direction on the Mozambique border. They've got one there, and then there are a few still in the Timbavati prides that have white lions and then produce white lions. And so it's a recessive gene, and what that means is that two normal colored lions who carry the gene can well produce cubs that are white. And it doesn't seem to affect their ability to hunt. It doesn't seem to affect their ability to interact with other lions. So a really fascinating sort of coloration or abnormal coloration that doesn't affect the animals at all. And people have been fascinated by them since they were found. There's a group in Hoedspruit, which is not too far from here. It's the nearest town, fairly dubious settlement. That there's a group there that sort of runs under the what do we say? I don't want to say belief. Well, yes, it is. They run under the belief that the white lions are descended from the Egyptian pharaohs or some such, and that they are some sort of sacred animal. I'm not a particular subscriber to that school of thought, but it's not. Nothing's impossible out here. But they have definitely derived a huge amount of fascination throughout the world. I'm just being hailed on the radio by Brent Leo Smith. Let me just quickly talk to him. Go ahead, Brent. Lions. Drove pretty much past them. Probably that I'll be there in 5 minutes. All right, let's go and see the lions. Brent has found them with Steph and Brian. We're going to go in and find them. They obviously are not going to spend too much time on foot with the lions. That's mainly because lions are afraid of people, not the other way around. And I'm not being facetious there. That's absolutely true. And so we'll head down that way and be there hopefully in about 5 minutes. They're just near the Djuma Dam. They're pretty much where Andrew and I thought they went this morning, but they've moved a little bit further on from there. Andrew, hold on tight. Remove your dentures. Now, I don't think they're going to go anywhere particularly fast, given that the day is warm, and lions don't like to move around too much on warm days. So we won't break our necks getting there, but we'll drive as quickly as possible. We'll go at slightly less than walk speed. So we're on the far eastern side of the reserve, 900 hectares, or if you multiply by 2.4, all this imperial and metric conversion is starting to boil my brain. Roughly 2,000 acres, a little bit more, 2,100 or so acres, and we're on the far eastern side of it. Djuma Dam is pretty much in the middle. It's roughly a square, Djuma, and Djuma Dam is just in the middle of the square, and we are going towards there. Just gone past some Nyala, my favorite antelope out here. I'm not going to try and get to the lions. We'll have a brief look at them, and if they are lying about doing nothing, then we'll probably push on and then head towards them as it gets dark, because I'm fairly sure that as it does get dark, they're going to head after those buffalo that they were trying to catch this morning. Keep on the lookout for reptiles as well there. Fear not. If I see something really fascinating, I might have to stop there. There was a little troop of dwarf mongoose And as we're going to look at the very largest carnivore that we have here, oh, there, can you see it? Andrew, you see the stump? Oh, you got him. You're a genius. Well done. Look at that, isn't that sweet? There you go. That's the equivalent here of a meerkat. Everybody in the world knows what a meerkat is. After the Lion King, Timon was a meerkat, was a member of the mongoose family, and that's what those are. Little dwarf mongoose. Very sweet. Okay, that was the smallest carnivore that we get here. We're on to the largest. See that? You see, Andrew? Were you pointing, or were you just stretching your arm? Donna, we're driving along at a relatively high speed, and Wendy, of course, is a Land Rover, a straight 6 2.8 litre engine. And Donna, you would like to know how fast Wendy is able to go. Well, Donna, there are a number of limiting factors to that. Wendy is deeply aged, of course, for a car. She was born in 1997. They age faster than human beings. She is also driven by, well, she drives around the bush really. Brent Leo Smith is fairly rough with her. I'm not much better, and so that affects her speed. That all combined with her age means that what probably used to be a top speed of about 160 kilometers an hour, 100 miles an hour, is probably now reduced, I wouldn't say, to much more than maybe 100 kilometers an hour or 60 miles per hour. We're not going to do anything like that speed here, of course. We're only going to drive at roughly 20 to 30 kilometers an hour, so not much more than 12 miles per hour as we drive through here. These metric conversions are really starting to hook my brain. And fear not, Donna, Andrew has never been thrown off the back of the car. I don't think I've ever thrown a cameraman off. Has anybody ever been thrown off?
I don't think so. I came close the other day.
Did you? Oh, yes. Apparently Brian fell off once. His honor.
Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back on the vehicle with us.
So we are about 2.5 minutes away from the Juma Dam, and we were chatting about the fact that Brian did actually fall off the car once because of Brent Leo Smith's skills behind the wheel. I mercifully haven't lost a cameraman yet. Andrew, however, nearly fell off yesterday when I hit the brakes, and he was carrying that enormous walking pack. I'm being unfair to Brent. He was driving very slowly at the time. I'm not sure how Brian fell. Perhaps he fell asleep. Can be very soporific out here. So we were chatting a little bit earlier about snakes and the ones that are the most venomous out here, and we came to the conclusion that it was a worm-stung or tree snake. Although not the most famous snake out here, that would be the black mamba, probably. Everybody knows what a mamba is. And Kathleen in Savannah, Georgia, you want to know what the difference is between poisonous and venomous. Strictly speaking, the difference is that if something is poisonous, it means that if you ingest it, if you eat it, it will cause you trouble, it will poison you. So to say that a snake is poisonous is to basically say that if you ate the snake, it would make you sick, it would poison you. Venomous means something that can inflict a poisonous bite and cause what we envenomation. So that's the difference between venomous and poisonous. And the snake, of course, if you chop its head off, can make quite good eating, apparently. You wouldn't like to be eating the venom glands in the mouth, so best to chop the head off. But you can eat them, and so they are therefore not poisonous. They are venomous, because if they bite you, then you will become envenomated, either painfully, if it's a cytotoxic venom like an adder bite or a rattlesnake bite, perhaps not so painfully but massively deadlily if it's a hemotoxic venom like the tree snake or vine snake, or a bit of both if it's a neurotoxic venom like the black mamba, which will eventually cause you to suffocate. Which we'll come back to. There's some zebra going downstream. I think we'll just carry on to the lines for now so that we know where they are. And it's always a good idea when somebody's on foot and has found them, just to go and check where they are first in the vehicle. There's some zebra coming down to drink, which is quite nice. We'll come back and have a look at them if the lions are not doing much. Still on the subject of snakes, of course, and another young herpetologist, this time from the other side of the world, not in Missouri, but in the Netherlands. Jimmy, you're aged just 8, and a budding young herpetologist perhaps. You want to know, how does a secretary bird learn to kill a snake? Jimmy, I think they do it mainly by instinct, you know. What they do is they stamp on snakes with their big feet, and they're very fast. So much faster than us. So while we would find it difficult sometimes to be fast enough to escape the attentions of a snake, the same is not for many of the birds and animals out here that eat snakes, because they're much faster than we are. And I don't think they actually learn so much as they're born with the ability. Much like, I'm just trying to think of an obvious human instinctual behavior. So while human beings have the instinct to talk from birth, even though we have to learn how to do it properly, that's an instinct that is born in us. And so a bit like that, so it is with secretary birds and their ability to kill snakes. And they don't get bitten because they're just so fast. I'm just going to call Brent on the radio and see if we can't answer from him. Brent, I'm turning onto that shortcut from the shortcut Google. And what's the best approach from there? Okay, copy, thanks. So I come into the drainage line from the crossing. Brent would have shown you them on foot, which would have been a really nice experience. And I'll talk a little bit about it when we get closer. But he doesn't have signal down here on the bushwalk backpack. Anyway, we'll do it in the vehicle, and another time you will experience lions on foot. It's a marvelous experience. But I'll describe it to you when we get in there. That's the vehicle from which they walked. They've lain down in a very nice place, these lions. This is a really lots of nice trees, lots of birds calling, cool shade. how far from them, Andrew, when we turned around at those buffalo?
Yeah, 100 meters.
So I'm waving at Brent Smith, who's behind us. We'll give you a quick look at where he is with the backpack. There they are. So they're standing roughly 300 meters from the lions, and they spotted them clearly from that distance, and I don't think the lions had any idea that they were here, and so they haven't moved at all. They're exactly in the same place, sleeping very quietly. Now I'll describe that process to you just now because it is really interesting. I'm just going to quickly call in on the radio that we found them because it's important that we let people know. Stations located at Salala Pride. They are at the junction with the drainage line of the shortcut to the shortcut to Gallagher. So that road between Gallagher shortcut and Mvubu. Animals are static, fast asleep. So now, sorry, I'll get back to you now. It was Brent who found them, not me, but I'll take the credit. Thanks, Kate. So what we have here is the pride that I described to you earlier, the Salala pride of 3 young male lions and 3 females. And the young males are they're almost the same size as the females. They're not quite the same size just yet. Now, while we're sitting here, I don't think that they're going to do a huge amount, so we probably won't be here for too long. We'll come back when it cools down and gets a bit darker and see if they don't move off towards where the buffalo went. They were found on foot. Now, a lot of people are absolutely astonished by the fact that we would go looking for Africa's largest and seemingly most terrifying predator on foot willingly without being told to do so as a form of torture. Now, the big thing to understand here is that human beings are seen as the apex predator. These lions are probably seen just below us on that kind of hierarchy of predators. And so first of all, they see us as a threat. And so when we see them on foot, and I'm pretty sure those sharpshooters who found them here, and by sharpshooters I don't actually mean shooting, I mean in terms of their eyes and their skills in the bush, I'm pretty sure that the lions had no idea that they were there. They were standing there watching. The lions were all facing the other way. I don't think they had any idea that they were there. If they'd come across here and the lions had woken up and seen them, they probably would have just trotted off down the drainage line. They may have growled once, and they would have then laid down again in the shade, watched what the guys did, and if they just walked away, that would be the end of the conflict. The same goes for so many animals out here, and if you know how they're going to behave, you can track them relatively safely. Yes, there can always be a time when something might go wrong. Say you come across an injured lion and it hasn't eaten for a long time, then it might be keen to push through some form of attack. But it's much safer than crossing a road in New York City or getting in a car in London, for example, or any other kind of urban activity, and people often don't realize that, so it's quite interesting. Big congratulations to the trackers. The tracking, of course, is a huge, wonderful and ancient skill that we try and maintain out here. And Deb, as you say, well done to Brent and the boys. Absolutely correct. Just great work to find them. So this pride of lions is, and for those of you who've been watching regularly, you will know this. You haven't seen this pride very often, and that's because this is not the core of their territory. They are in the core of another pride's territory, a pride called the Nkuhuma pride, a great favorite with our many regular viewers, a pride that has really had some nasty turmoil as the male coalition has changed in the last few months. And Mike, you want to know if you think that we'll be seeing the Salala pride more and more, and maybe this will become the pride that we view the most. Mike, I don't think so. I think what happened was that those Birmingham boys have created such a ruckus. They killed 3 of those Nkuhuma lionesses, and I think the Nkuhumas probably stopped marking their territory. They probably didn't want to advertise where they were, advertise anything about their presence, and I think because of that, other lions have considered this area a bit of a vacuum. We've certainly had the Talamati pride, we've had the Shimungwe pride, both in the core here of the Nkuhuma pride territory, and I think that that is simply a function of the fact that it probably smells and sounds like a vacuum. I don't think the Nkuhumas have marked here for a while, and they certainly haven't been calling here for a while, and so it probably feels to these lions like there's some kind of power vacuum. So that said, the Nkuhuma pride seems to be back on Biffle's Hook, which is not too far from here, of course. We were nearby there. What that lion is doing, oh wonderful, he's going to go to the loo. This is wonderful. Look at this high action for a lion sighting in the afternoon. He's just looking for a comfortable spot to relieve himself. And I was just chatting briefly about the fact that the Birmingham boys, who are a coalition of 5 young male lions, probably 4.5 to 5 years old now, come in, killed 3 lionesses, chased away the dominant coalition from this area, and Opheria, I think it is, from Israel. You want to know why they wouldn't kill these young Ophira. Brian, am I hearing it? Andrew, am I hearing it correctly? Ophira in Israel. Wonderful to hear from you there in Israel. That's a red-chested cuckoo you can hear. You want to know why it is that the Birminghams wouldn't kill these 3 young males. Well, they may well. I'm not sure how much interaction they've had with them, and you make the note that the Matimba males have already had a go at them. Yeah, I think that there are two aspects to this. First of all, these young males are no threat, of course, to the Birminghams, and so they wouldn't necessarily be a target. They're hardly hitting puberty, so they're very much, I think that they would be seen in much the same light as a lioness would, as a sub-adult lioness would. They're not a threat to the Birminghams, and they're not tiny cubs. They're more than a year old. And only cubs that are, well, normally, and I'm kind of being a little confused about this because of the way the Birminghams have behaved. The textbooks will tell you that only cubs under a year old will be killed by a new male coalition. The Birminghams haven't done that. They've killed lionesses, they've killed sub-adults over a year old. So these guys might be in danger. Normally, there's no advantage to doing that. So if you kill the cubs that are below a year old, the lionesses come back into estrus, but these lionesses will be coming into estrus anyway fairly soon. These males are probably roughly 2 years old at this stage. So they could be in trouble, they might be okay. If the Birminghams are settled and they don't feel like their territory's under threat, I think these 2 guys would be fine. Can you hear that bird? Such a wonderful bird of the summer. And I can't see it anywhere. The last little while Andrew searches the boughs, there it goes. Sorry, Andrew. You're only about a kilometre behind it now. Bad luck. It flew off in that direction there. You can just hear it. They are the most remarkably clever birds at hiding, are the cuckoos. So this pride has killed 4 buffalo in the last week or so. They were found with the, look at the Franklin behind there. Little Natal Franklin. Sneaking closer. I've seen this quite often before, and I don't know what on earth those birds are thinking. Probably not a lot. That bird is now 2 meters from the jaws of a lion. Coming around the side. Move. Maybe just having a look. Enjoying the sighting like we are from the other side at ground level. Anyway, while that Franklin toys with its life, there have been 14 buffalo killed here in the last 10 days or so. These guys were responsible for at least 3 of them, possibly more. Not all here, some on Simbambili, which is not too far from here. And in line with that, Larry in Danville, an interesting one, do lions kill for joy? Are they perhaps killing for joy? Like a domestic cat might kill a field mouse and bring it into the house. No. I don't believe that it's killing for joy. I believe it's purely acting on instinct. And it's an instinctual response or an evolutionary response to times of stress, of nutritional stress. They'll kill and eat as much as they possibly can because they're not always going to be able to do that. So they're basically, for want of a better metaphor, and this is a terrible one, but they're making hay while the sun shines. They'll kill as much as they can, eat as much as they can. If a kudu wandered through here, even though they're still pretty full of buffalo meat, they'd smash it, definitely. And I think that they will go hunting those buffalo again this evening. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what they're going to do. And when your house cat catches a mouse and brings it inside, it's doing the same thing. They might not eat it because obviously they don't have to. They've got food on tap all the time. And certainly some of the house cats I've seen are so morbidly obese they'd really struggle to catch any kind of a mouse. But it's an instinctual act to kill. All cats are the same. These cats are very similar to your house cat, except no house cat would have let a bird walk out close to its jaws and left it alone. But they do behave in a very similar fashion. But of course they don't have a little bowl of pellets to go and snack on afterwards. So they will kill, they'll eat rotting meat very happily. So if they're full, they'll just let the meat rot and then eat it anyway. Good question. Thanks, Larry. Right, I don't think we're going to get a huge amount more action from this particular sighting. So we'll sit here for a few more minutes and then we'll probably come back a little bit later. I must say, I just want to point out that male closest to us, Andrew, look at the colour of his coat. He's almost grey. That's quite unusual. All the others are sort of bog standard issue tawny, and he's got a lot of grey in his coat. There he is, having a little bit of a stretch. Very comfortable spot for a lion to be sleeping. And they are now probably, I'd say 8 meters from the vehicle, which is 28-ish feet, I suppose, from us, so not far at all. And you can see completely unfazed by our presence. It's a very odd colour, that grey. It'll be interesting to see what he looks like if he gets to adulthood. Of course, not much more than 1 or 2 in 10 lions, males especially, make it to territorial adulthood. So his days are by no means safe. And then the male that we saw wandering about here, who eventually relieved himself just off the rocks beyond which his family was sleeping, certainly they don't have particularly savoury toilet habits, lions. You may have noticed he's got a gash behind his tail. And Dave and Pamela, you want to know, where did that come from and how did he get it? I'm not sure. To me it looks like a hyena bite, I think. I think there was some inference that it perhaps was a buffalo that did it, or the claw of another lion. I think it was a hyena bite. It looks to me, when these animals are under attack by other lions or by hyenas and they feel like they're under threat, what they do is they sit down and then they try and face the threat with their front up, with their weapons, their front claws, hugely powerful forearms and claws and hugely powerful teeth, and they'll swing around if they're being attacked. They don't want to be bitten on the back because they've got no defense there, so they kind of sit down. And the hyenas will always go in for the back. They'll turn around, stay away from the claws and the teeth, and get in at the backside. And if there are 3 or 4 of them, often the lions will take the odd nip on the bottom. And that, to me, is what that looks like. I can't be sure, and I'm sure there might be, some of our viewers might actually know what happened to him, and they follow the developments of these lions very closely. So if anybody else knows, #SafariLiveIt to us, please. Happily stand down on my theory of whether it was a hyena or not, but it looks to me like a damage from a hyena. The tailless lioness now turning over. Now, one of the things, of course, our cameramen like to do is to wear buffs, and I was most astonished by this thing. I didn't know what a buff was when I arrived here. A buff, of course, is a sort of scarf that's been tied in the, how would you describe it? It's a tubular piece of material that goes around the face, and I thought that they were just nervous of being shot on camera, perhaps, that they were criminals and didn't want to be seen on live internet. But in fact it is not mainly for the flies, and of course a pride of lions and their associated latrines do attract a huge number of flies, as do the carcasses that they kill. And James Bear in Kansas, you have made mention of something called a screw fly in the United States. And a screw fly, you say, digs into a wound, or the fly lays an egg on the wound, the maggot screws itself in and can cause death. We don't have anything like that as far as I'm aware. There are many, many different species of fly that we do get here, but I'm not aware of anything like the screw fly. Maggots are often used, actually, and certainly have been used in traditional medicine here, to clean wounds. So you put maggots on a wound so that they eat away the rotting flesh, take them off and try and bind the wound. So I'm not aware of anything like a screw fly here, James, but I might be wrong. We're just going to have a quick look up at the top of the tree there. There's a greater blue-eared glossy starling. Greater blue-eared glossy starling, not an easy word to say in the morning, or easy name to get right in the morning after you've not had your coffee. And it's a starling that's now with a few friends watching the lions as we are. And they seem to be part of a small bird party. There are a couple of other birds that I can hear calling here. There's a Cape glossy starling, which looks almost identical. In fact, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. There's one there in the knobthorn tree there, Andrew. You got him there? And the only way I can tell the difference, they're sitting next to each other now. The one on the left is a greater blue-eared glossy starling, the one on the right is a Cape glossy starling, and the difference is in the call. Wonderful. Beautiful birds. And you can't really see it there, but they have the most fantastic iridescent blue colour. It's gorgeous. When I say bird party, there was a dove, there was an emerald-spotted wood dove calling, and I can hear a woodpecker tapping away somewhere. Rather perfect afternoon. And for those of you who've just joined us, perhaps, we didn't find these lions, Andrew and I. We were called in by Brent and Steph and Brian, who'd found them on foot. And I gave a little description of what it's like to be on foot with lions and with some of the other animals out here. And of course, walking safaris are an enormous part of the safari experience in Africa. The birds are now starting to shout at the lions. They don't like them being around here. You can hear them starting to shout a bit more. And Sarah, on the topic of walking safaris, you're quite interested to know, would a walking safari, if you went on one, would your guide walk you to lions? They might under certain circumstances. You know, if you were to come across these lions, if you were tracking them on a walking safari, hopefully your guide and tracker would be experienced enough to see them before they knew that you were there. Even if that didn't happen, like I say, they would move off. And so yes, absolutely you can track lions on foot on a walking safari. The thing about being on a walking safari is that often you're with 8 other people. And certainly when I was a guide and I did quite a lot on foot, you just don't know how 8 people are going to react. It's easy to control 2 or 3 people. It's not so easy to control 8 people. So if you get into a situation where you're walking along a drainage line like this, you happen across some lions, everybody knows how to react because you've told them very carefully, but you just don't know how people are going to react when they see an animal like this, or perhaps a buffalo stands up out of a bush in front of them. And the key thing is that everybody can't run. No one can run. Everyone must be quiet, watch the guide, and he'll tell you what to do. Some very angry birds up there. And so, Sarah, yes, it's possible. I wasn't a huge fan of taking 8 people to do line tracking. Happily do it with 2 or 3, though. That would be that's the kind of nice number to do it with. I'm just going to try and show you some of the birds that are calling there. There's an orange-breasted bushshrike. There are a whole lot of starlings. And I think some of that calling is alarming at these lions. They just don't like having the predators around, even though a starling is hardly a meal for a pride of lions like this. Alright, I think we should leave these chaps for now. Let's go pop down to the waterhole and see if we can't spot the zebra that we had earlier. We'll come back here as the sun sets, and that's when it's lion time really, and they'll hopefully get moving. The buffalo are in that direction there, in Buffelshoek. They may come back to graze this afternoon, they may not, but I think these lions will track them later on. Let's press on and see what else we can see. Twitch as we started the engine. One ear turned vaguely towards where we were. We were sitting about, well, like I said, 8 meters, 20 feet or so from the lions, and I mean, we had one of them next to the car, so close this morning, that tailless lioness, that Andrew couldn't actually get the camera onto her because she was so close to the door. And as you say, Lynn, it is remarkable how that happens and how we're able to do it. And it's born of 2 things. Firstly, they don't see us as people on the cars. I'm pretty sure that they can recognize, you know, they can, as a friend of mine once said to me, you know, a leopard can spot a monkey's ear from behind a tree. Don't tell me you can't see a human being sitting on a car a couple of feet from him. But because we're not standing up, their reaction is just so totally different from what it would be were we to walk in and try and view them on foot. You know, that upright posture of human beings. Remember, we're the only bipedal mammal in the world. We're the only mammal that by default walks on 2 feet. And that bipedal stance is tremendously threatening to everything out here. Certainly you can get a lot closer to animals if you're in a vehicle than you can on foot. And often this is, I mean, even if you want to go birding or something like that, often being on foot is a bit of a disadvantage because animals don't react to this vehicle in the same way as they do to us on foot. But then it still amazes me daily. I mean, we had Karula the leopard running past the front of the vehicle today. She did look. As she came herring out of the bush, she was chasing a bushbuck. Not a bushbuck, a little nyala. As she came running across the road, she stopped, did a slight double take at the car and just kept going. She didn't, she really hardly reacted to us at all. And of course, once, as cubs, they become used to vehicles, then they really don't look at us. They pay no attention at all. The waterhole is just around here, and we'll go and see what is there. Good news. WildEarth Smith does get around quite a lot, and he is now at Wildhoek Dam where we were. He is on foot again and with some signal, which is great news, and I'm sure he'll find some interesting little tidbits to tell you. We'll carry on searching and see you just now.
Hello and welcome on the afternoon walking safari. My name is WildEarth Smith and I'm going to be your guide through the African bush on foot. I've got Brian on camera with me. Have a quick look over the shoulder. We're at the Buffelshoek waterhole and there are 4 hippos. So there must be serious pressure on the other waterholes for them to want to utilize this at the moment. It is very shallow and you'll find those hippos are actually not standing up. They've got their knees folded in to try to get as much of their body under the water as possible. But the hippos are not the reason that we've come to this area. So we're going to leave our vehicle here and we've got a report of tracks of Karula. For those of you not sure what Karula is, she's the dominant female leopard in this section. What are you up to? Oh, he's shaking his tail. And tracks were heading towards the waterhole and she does like this area. So we're going to try second guess where she might come out. So instead of going to the last tracks and following that way, it sounds like there's some ellies off that side as well. So maybe they'll come down to drink. So we're going to do a big loop from here. We're going to try see if we can find her tracks and then loop back down towards the waterhole in case she moves here when it's a little bit cooler for a drink. You can see her on sunrise safari. Be a nyala across our southern boundary, but it looks like she might have missed and she's back.
Coming back to us. Hello everyone. There is, oh, it's not a tortoise at all. Our 2 young herpetologists, your day is made. Were you looking at a tortoise or are you looking at a monitor lizard?
Yeah, monitor lizard.
So not a tortoise?
Not a tortoise.
Okay. Tortoise has got a shell, Andrew. There's a big monitor lizard in there. Now what we'll try and do is get a little bit closer. We'll try and drive around there and see if we can't get a better look. And our 2 herpetologists, this is the biggest lizard other than the crocodile, of course, that we get here. Can you still see him, Andrew?
I can't see it.
I can't see it at all either. Oh, there it is. It's moving. Same place that it was. I tell you what, let's just go around there. Let's not... It's so well hidden. And what I think it's eating is these skeletons and the remains of the last catfish that are in the mud there. Just hold on tight. He's in here somewhere.
I can see him.
Can you see him?
Yeah.
Do you want me to stop? Should I go forward?
Yeah, we're good here.
We're good here. Andrew spotted him again. I can't see him. I can see him in the screen, but oh, there he is. That's a water monitor lizard. That's really marvelous. He actually lives around here. We've seen him around these parts often. And I think what you'll find is that there are some starlings around as well, and I think they're probably eating some of the maggots and flies that have been on the catfish. So these times of drought are not always as awful for all the animals as they are for some. So that's the last remaining puddle there where that starling standing. You can see the discoloured clay, and that's those little bits and pieces there are the remains of the last catfish. That's a Birchall starling that you can see there. And that wonderful shot of the monitor lizard. We don't normally get very good views of them. They normally scuttle off at great speed and disappear into holes. It's very special. It's one of two monitor lizard species we get here. The other one is called a rock or tree monitor, and they live unsurprisingly in trees or on rocks. And this is a water monitor who unsurprisingly lives around water. This one is much more slender. Right, let's look back to Brent. Apparently he's looking for Karula around Buffelshoek. That's exciting. He's got some picture, so hopefully this time it will last, and we'll see you when we see you.
So we're off on one of these elephant paths. Sometimes we are going to disappear, and that is one of the things that happens when you're alive in the African bush, bringing Africa to you in real time. And don't forget, you can also ask us questions while we're out here, and you can do that by using the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter, or you can use the email address questions@wildearth.tv. So you can see lovely and green at the moment, even though if we look closely at the grass, it's not so green. So the rain has really greened up a lot of the trees and that, but there still isn't a lot of browse around, and it is, I think, going. So we're moving these elephant paths, and while we're going, we're carefully checking for tracks. From where the last tracks of Karula were seen, which is pretty much due east of us, a little bit southeast, general direction was towards the dam. So hopefully, if we don't find her tracks, we'll find her with a tree climbing impala. But we will be checking all these little elephant paths, and this is an area where we have seen her quite a few times in the And when we're on foot, it's always important to just stop and listen every now and then. You never know what's going to be around. So, on this sunset walking safari, Heidi. Heidi's wondering why little birds, tiny little birds, will alarm call at a big predator like a leopard. So surely they can just fly away. She does realize that it is very helpful to the other animals. Well, Heidi, I think it's an instinctive response there to alarm at any predator, and even if they get slightly confused sometimes. I've seen them alarm at serval just in case it's a small leopard, or even at a caracal. But you must remember, all predators are opportunists, and a lion or a leopard, if it could, would catch one of those, and leopard cubs often do. So that's probably the reason why they alarm so much at the bigger predators. Just checking very carefully on these paths. And listen. There's always the old buffalo bulls, and they will be around and quite often will sleep nearby, and they're one of the more dangerous animals to encounter on foot. But if you've got your wits and your ears about you, you can normally hear them before you see them, and you can plan how to either view them or avoid them. Something there. So, some of you guys who are watching and were on the back of the video, Brian, Steph and myself, watching those lions on foot, and Lynn's one, if I've ever come across a lion that didn't run away. I've come across a few, Lynn. I've had a few good, healthy doses of lion-induced adrenaline in my life. Possibly in the eastern Kruger National Park, the most of those have occurred. But even in those situations, the most important thing on foot with all animals is whatever you do, don't run. Stand your ground, shout, clap, make a lot of noise, and normally those animals will stop. And quite often lion will stop. I've had lions stop literally that distance away from me. So what's that? 1.5 meters away from me, and hit the brakes and then run away. The general moral of the story with lion charges is noisy lion, safe lion, quiet lion, dangerous lion. So if it's a noisy lion that's running at you going, whoa, 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 and basically telling you to go away, it's a warning charge. There's no such thing as a mock charge. It is a warning. If a lion's coming quietly, then it's a far more serious. But fortunately with lions, quite often very loud and some choice words shouted in their general direction can change that full charge into a warning charge. But it is you got to be very careful to read those situations. And we're going to continue on through here. Hopefully we find some tracks or hear some alarm calls that might give us an idea where the Queen of Juma might be. So we get these nice little soft bits of soil. Makes sense to just check a little bit more carefully. We might be able to see a track a little bit more easily. That doesn't look like anything here just yet. Those of us who've watched Karula for quite a while will know she's a huge fan of a termite mound. So whenever we see a big termite mound, it's always worthwhile having a quick recce of the termite mound. So we can see a nice big termite mound there. Just stopping a little bit further away. Just have a careful look. You never know if a leopard could be lying hidden in that grass on top. And then I'll check the paths that lead up to the termite mound to see if she's not possibly used that termite mound as a vantage point and then continued on down towards the drainage line. So there's a lot of messages to Steph, who's trying to hide from you guys again behind the bush. A lot of people saying hello to Steph, and they miss you, Steph, and they'd like to see you once in a while. I think, yeah, you might be seeing Steph sooner than you think, and not hiding behind the bushes behind us. So, well, it'll have to be a surprise. You might just appear one day. So, if you think like a leopard would quite often, just even if it's just walking through, use that termite mound, get a little bit of elevation, and then come down. So it always pays to check quite carefully around the paths that come off the top of a termite mound. And also just to stop and listen. At the moment, all we're hearing is a coqui francolin. Sounds like a male coqui francolin. They've really stepped up their calling now, as they're getting ready to mate. I heard something around here. It almost sounded like quite a big animal's hoof. So I'm just going to go forward very quietly. There's a couple of animals it could be. It could be buffalo. It could also be giraffe. Just listening, so when we listen for buffalo, we sort of listen for those knocking of the horns. They quite often scratch their heads against bushes. And that's the reason I'm speaking quite a bit more softly now. Just in case, I'm also trying to listen at the same time. But let's go forward a little bit. And maybe whatever it is will reveal itself. So with all this greenery around and these leaves, it does make it more difficult to see things. So that's why we're going really cautiously at the moment. And we'll just stop and listen every couple of steps. And being cautious and using your ears, your eyes, your smell are some of the most important things about being safe on a bushwalk. If you rush, you get into trouble. Right, just moving a branch for Brian there.
Hello everyone, beautiful waterbuck there, just having a drink at the Gowrie Dam pond, for want of a better term. It's a pumped pan. You can just see his horns like those of a shark. Well, no, sharks don't have horns, of course they have fins, but like the fins of a shark above the water surface. I'm going to go away with that metaphor, it doesn't work at all. So waterbuck there, and then there's been some wonderful play behavior going on here between a herd of zebra, a herd of kudu, which has just sort of walked off into the bush, but the young zebras have been having a great whale of a time in the dust around here. So we'll just sit here for a little bit longer and watch them. The sun is starting to slowly sink behind us. It's just wonderful to see them play. And of course, play behavior in any mammal is very important for many reasons. And most of the reasons out here include the need to develop the coordination and speed and strength that will eventually help them to avoid being eaten by things like those lions we saw just now. So they've had their drink, and now they're having some of the slightly more succulent grass that occurs here because we're on sort of the edge of a drainage system. So the grass is just a little bit greener and possibly a little bit more nutritious than it might be up on the ridge crests where the sand is more, or the soil is more well drained. And you can see them, that little one on top has been playing around, on the bottom has been playing, there he goes. Bucking, cavorting about, he was chasing some kudu, he was chasing some impala. And it just looked like the most joyful exuberance. And if you were watching this morning, you may have noticed or seen me climb onto the dead knobthorn tree at basically directly behind those zebras, so behind where we are, the opposite side of the dam. Oh look, there's a bushbuck. That's wonderful. We don't often see them here. They're around the camps. We don't see them hugely often. Closely related to kudu and nyala. That's a really nice bushbuck ram, that. Bushbuck, or have I gone mad? It is a bushbuck, isn't it? I've lost my binoculars. I think I've left them on the other vehicle. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that's a bushbuck, unless I've gone stark raving insane, which I don't think I have. Now, I planted in that tree a leopard orchid pod, and Anne, you were wondering if it's growing. It's not, you know. I don't know what's happened to it. There's a nyala coming down. Now that other animal is a young nyala. It's not a bushbuck. I have gone insane. There we go. Yes, young nyala. Sorry about that, everyone. Another young viewer fascinated by the wilderness. We get some lovely inquiries from her as we watch the zebras playing just like young kids like to play, and some older ones like me as well. Isabella, aged just 4 years, do zebras like to play in the water with elephants? Isabella, not with elephants. They can swim, but they don't like to swim too much because they're often very afraid of crocodiles, and so they normally stay away from the water if they can, Isabella. They don't like to go swimming in the water too much. There's a Burchell starling, another starling species, and he's looking for little insects that are in the mud there. He's just gone past a piece of elephant dung that he was hoping to try and eat. Now, when I was a young boy, I met 1 or 2 exchange students from the United States and various other parts of the world, and certainly the impression was that in Johannesburg, where I grew up, that animals used to roam the streets, and we used to ride them to school and perhaps to the shops on elephants or zebras or buffalo, and that lions roamed at night, and we'd shut ourselves into our huts, our television sets. Not really on that vein, of course, but similar question, Christine. I don't think you think that there are elephants roaming the streets of Johannesburg, but you would like to know if some of the bigger animals that we get here roam into our cities. Not really in South Africa, Christine. South Africa's national parks are very well fenced, and the animals and urban areas tend to be very well separated. Some of the rural villages on the borders of the Kruger National Park, you must remember they're almost probably up to at least 4 million people living on the borders of the Kruger National Park, probably more. And elephants especially do get into the rural areas, rural villages, and sometimes lions and leopards as well. But normally they don't do too much harm to people. They normally go after crops and livestock, but they do cause some damage. But because the fencing is pretty good here, it's not a very common occurrence. Further north of us, Christine, in Botswana, for example, there are towns on the fringes of their enormous expanses of wildlife land there, and those areas are not fenced. So it's not unusual, for example, in northern Botswana, a place called Kasane, to have an elephant wandering through the middle of the town. So that's not unusual. And they deal with that just simply by leaving the elephant alone. The elephant is not a predator, of course, and as long as you leave them alone, they will generally leave you alone. So that's how we deal with them. They may get the odd hyena, of course. Hyenas definitely will wander through urban areas if they can, looking for rubbish and scavenging and that sort of thing. And even in Johannesburg, believe it or not, they found a brown hyena there about 6 months ago. So, Christine, to answer your question in very briefly, not really in South Africa, but certainly north of us, there are absolutely urban areas that have to deal with wild animals that come into them, but ironically probably less so than you do in the States with things like bears in the northern states. Lovely question. Thank you, Christine. Right. And I must apologise profusely for my misidentification of a nyala as a bushbuck. That was really a rather appalling indictment on myself. And MJ, you say I'm stark raving insane. You may well be right. It's a young nyala bull with his mentor. Right, we'll drive up onto the top here, and I think we may even head towards Quarantine Clearing and see what's over there. We're not going to go too far from this area for the next little while, because we do want to go back to those lions perhaps as the sun goes down. And I think we're probably about half an hour off sunset at the moment. It is a really glorious afternoon, I must tell you, with some big grey clouds that have really diffused the light nicely. Really delicious atmosphere about the place. No wind really to speak of at all. We watch the zebra playing around there, and often, as with human beings, play behavior can turn into conflict behavior. So I mean, I don't know how many times my brother and I, when we were little boys, would start off playing and somebody would hit somebody slightly too hard, and then it would escalate into violence fairly soon afterwards. And Barbara, sort of along those lines, you're in Potchefstroom near Johannesburg. You say you saw in the Pilansberg, which is a reserve not too far from Joburg, you saw a zebra attacking a newborn springbok lamb. And is this usual, you say, or why would it happen? And your guess that they do this in order to stop the young animals attracting predators, I think, is a very good one. It's common with zebra. They do it quite a lot. They do it to their own foals sometimes, or the foals of other kinship groups. It's not uncommon. We saw that here the other day, where a zebra was alarm calling a young one, tiny little foal, and it was eventually killed by one of the adult stallions from another kinship group. We don't think that stallion was related, and I'm pretty sure, as you've guessed correctly, that they do that in order to avoid the youngsters attracting predators. So it's not uncommon at all with zebra. They're known as particularly vicious creatures, actually, especially in zoos, and I've definitely seen lots of footage of them killing other animals. I've seen footage of them killing young wildebeest. I was just looking at a squirrel there. It's gone up into its tree now. So here we are on quarantine clearings. Let's see what we can spot here. I suspect all of those zebra, all of the kudu, and definitely the waterbuck are going to come up here just now as the sun goes down and try and wait out the evening. Now it will be interesting to see whether those lions head towards here and try and take a slightly, not necessarily easier, but smaller prey, or if they head straight for where those buffalo have gone. I'm not going to guess which. I've ended up with far too much egg on my face trying to guess where animals are going late. It's also interesting, you know, a few days ago, or about a week ago, you couldn't go around a corner without bumping into a herd of elephants. The last 2 days, we've seen a few, but certainly their numbers have dwindled quite a lot. I don't know where they've gone. Possibly into Buffalo's Hook where there's a bit more water. It is the most stunning afternoon. There's not an enormous amount going on here. Let's do a loop around, possibly around Philemon's Dip, which is to the south of where we are now, and we'll then head back to those lions and see what they're up to. Perfect time of year this. So if you're thinking of ever coming on a safari, this is a good time of year for you to do it. If not the best, actually. Just say hello to these fellows. Ah, yeah. He wasn't stopping. Didn't like the cut of my jib, I don't think, Andrew. Quite an interesting tree, but I don't know that I've seen it. I don't get this. I've seen one here before, I don't think. So special, I'll get you a piece, Andy.
Thank you, sir.
There you go. Have a feel of that. What does it feel like?
Very rough.
It's rough, eh? Almost like.
Sandpaper.
There we go. And therefore it is called the
Sandpaper bush.
Yeah, well done. And it's growing under the shade of a marula tree, as is a big guarri bush. It's got very rough leaves. And I must say, one of the great joys of living out here is the ability to touch and taste and smell things out here. And that is the sandpaper bush. Not an iconic tree of Africa by any stretch of the imagination, but it is just quite interesting. And I've tasted some. Pretty tasteless, actually. Not too bad. And just remember that you are not allowed to go into the wilderness, especially if you're a youngster, and just taste things willy-nilly like I'm doing out here. It can result in poisoning, which you really don't want. And so unless you're with a very experienced guide, don't just go into the wild and start eating things. Let's head across to Brent and see what he's got. I'm going to turn towards the west and see what we can find that way. I believe that Brent's signal is giving him a bit of issues, so you're going to stay with us. Aê! Minha coi. Tingala. Okay. Ao tive ti coi. Oh, nda kumzela. Tilega. Why ti van lele? Ifamba ematini. La le mati tsongo. Why ti va? Farm le utati kuma la enkoveni. Okay. All right. Sorry, back to Brent. He's now got a bit of signal, and we will see you later.
As you can see, we're looking at some little berries. These particular little berries are a great favorite of mine, and those who've been watching for a while will remember a while ago I showed flower. Now this has come after the flower. It's called a bird's brandy. It is the only indigenous lantana species to Africa, and it is one of my favorites. And you can see I've picked a whole bunch of these purple little and to eat them. I actually had to stop while we're waiting to come across because I nearly finished all the berries on the bush. But they are very, very almost just pure, almost sugar, but a bit nicer tasting than having a spoonful of sugar. But we have been discussing now that there are some really wonderful little edible fruits that are coming around at the moment. The trick is to get there before the monkeys and the birds. But this particular one was used by quite a lot of the early settlers to make very nice jam, and I just like to use them as snacks while I'm walking around the bush. But we are still on the track of Karula. She was last seen heading into this direction. We're going to go check now, continue checking all the big game parts, and we are now very close to where the last place was, and we're still listening really carefully to everything around us. And unfortunately all we can hear so far is the normal sort of chorus, birds, Cape turtle doves, crested francolin, and I'm down to my last two berries. So on that note, let's move on. Ahead is other really, really nice trees to eat, but the fruits aren't there. It's the Nkahuma tree, or a bird plum or brown ivory, which is what the Nkahuma pride of lions were named after the first time they were found, sleeping under one of these trees. And the fruits are sort of about that bit bigger, also really, really tasty. And there's a potent liqueur made out of them in Zambia. But also you can make jam, other preserves from them, and definitely one of my favorite trees that occurs here at Djuma. See all the new leaves sprouting, no fruit just yet. And there's actually a big one and a small one. And here we've got a very big one. Oh, it's actually the same tree. If you look down a bit closer, it's just got a second stem coming off here, and you can see how different is a young sort of main stem as opposed to a very old main stem. Very white, quite smooth, whereas the old stem's really rough and quite dark. Oh, I'm just going to help Brian. He's going to get, so I'm going to have to go back there. And I was really hoping we were going to find some tracks in this area, but no luck so far. This beautiful late afternoon light comes through, and you can see something we don't see. Djuma.
We've just stopped here for a brief respite. Sorry about the signal again on the bushwalk pack. It does seem to be slightly variable. We're looking at the sun going down through the woodland just to the right of me. We'll carry on now. Andrew, stop coughing. And I'm hoping that we might pick up on an elephant before we go back towards those lions. On we go. I must confess that I did eat a piece of that sandpaper bush, and it tasted a little bit like pencil shavings. You can imagine that eating pencil shavings. Well, that's what it tastes like. I wouldn't recommend eating either pencil shavings or sandpaper bush. Strong smell of buffalo around here. This is around where Brent was watching them being hunted by those lions last night. And this is good territory for buffalo to be hunted by lions because it's thick bush, difficult for them to see where the threat's coming from, difficult for them to know what's going on. And as Steph told us a nice story last night about watching lions catching buffalo. What they'll do sometimes is rush up to the buffalo, get a calf, bite it severely, and then disappear. And eventually that calf will die of the injuries, not too, a couple of hours maybe after it's been bitten. And Steph told us a story of watching exactly that happen. A female jumped on a young calf, bit it in the head, and it kind of wandered and then left. And they kind of wandered around, and an hour later it dropped dead, and the lions came in and ate it. And I think that's with buffalo is a large part of the strategy. And we had a question a little earlier about whether that young calf we saw this morning without the herd had been found again, if we had any updates. Now, for those of you who weren't watching this morning, and of course you should have been, but I'll forgive you if it was 3 o'clock in the morning, we saw a big herd of buffalo, and way at the back of the herd was this bellowing little calf in very bad condition. It had its tail ripped off by something, maybe hyenas, maybe lions. It was skinny, emaciated, looked sick, possibly had TB, and it was just a very sad and really heart-wrenching thing to see. And I don't know what happened to it. We left it alone. We didn't want to interfere. There haven't been any updates as to what's happened to it, I'm afraid. It's not easy to just let things like that go and not try and interfere, not try and chase the calf back towards the buffalo. But normally any interference on our part results in even more tragedy than it would be otherwise. So we just try and let things play out as they would in our absence. It's a very delicate balance, you know. For many people, wilderness, the meaning of wilderness is a natural area without people. And do you want me to stop for your artistic shot? It's a very, very, very nice drive-by sunset shot there. Well done. For many people, the wilderness is absent of people. And so the question about the buffalo, which I've just kind of explained in quite a lot of detail, came from Miss Gin and Penny Pine. Thank you for that. About the buffalo calf that is not, we don't know what's happened to it, I'm afraid. So as I was saying, the reason that we don't interfere, of course, is that we're supposed to be in a wilderness area, and for many people, wilderness is natural areas in the absence of human beings. For me, I'm not comfortable with that. I feel that we have been so much a part of wild areas for so long that to exclude human beings from the equation is just incorrect. And we've had a huge effect on them. And the wilderness likewise has had a huge effect on us. And so I find our integration into nature far more an expression of wilderness than trying to exclude us completely from it. We were looking at lions earlier, and we are hopefully going to see them again a little bit later. And I believe Barbara asked a question of Brent, and I think Ben also reiterated it, as to could he remember when he first saw a lion, and what did it make him feel like. And Barbara and Ben, I'm going to tell you two stories. The first one is to say I can remember when I first saw a lion. I was 6 years old in the Kruger National Park with my family and some family friends, and I had a case of gastroenteritis, and if you don't know what that means, it means a really bad stomach, that I can't remember ever having a worse one actually. And so I saw a lion. I remember seeing it and walking through the bush and being deeply unimpressed because I felt so supremely ill that it didn't make an impression on me. The next one I saw that I remember seeing, I probably saw one or two in childhood. The next one I saw, I remember seeing was during my training. And I came out of university and I had spent very little time in properly wild areas. And I went off to northern Natal, a place called Pinda, where I did my training. And I remember the very first male lion that I saw there. And he came bucketing out from behind the bush, convoy with another vehicle, so there's another vehicle in front of us, and this lion came out of the bush and ran at the vehicle. And I thought, this is astonishing, he's going to kill someone. And what he was doing was, he was a young lion who'd been brought into the area. It wasn't a wild area as wild as this. And much like a dog, he liked to chase the car tires, which of course is a bit terrifying when it's a 250 kilogram cat that's doing that. And so the next time I saw, he eventually went off. The next time I saw a lion was, like we've been viewing them now, very close by. And when one of them lifted his head and looked at us, I felt an utterly blood-chilling sense of fear from that lion. And it's obviously improved much since then. But I feel that it was a really valuable experience to have. To see a lion like that and feel, oh, because it really does. That kind of feeling connects you with the wild. So I really do appreciate the fact that I felt that kind of fear. And that was about, when was that? That was probably 15 years ago. And more than 15 years ago. It's distressing as well. Thank you, Barbara and Ben, for that. To the radio at the moment, trying to make sure that we have a space at those lions a little bit later on. It is an absolutely exquisite afternoon. Let's just stop and have a listen, see what we can hear. The cicadas are out in force. There, you can hear them now. Let me turn you around, Andrew. It's quite a nice.
Oh, it'd be very nice.
Picture there. I'm just going to go up onto the ridge crest here, everyone, and I'm going to turn around so that you can look at the sun going down over the mountains. It's just so pretty. I'm actually going to make a mess of this. I'm going to turn you around. So we talk quite a lot in these areas about traditional healing and eating or trying out traditional medicines, and we stop at a tree and we say, well, you know, this tree is used for traditional medicines. And there are, of course, huge numbers of practicing traditional healers in the area, and they generally come in two guises. One would be in Zulu, I don't know the Shongan terms for them. In Zulu you have an Inyanga, which is a herbalist, a healer, and you also have an Umtagati. can imagine what an umtagati does. An umtagati is what you might term a witch doctor, somebody who practices the dark arts, casting spells and curses on people. Now, James in Kansas, you want to know if I've ever used the surfaces of one of these traditional healers. I haven't. I have spent some time with a traditional healer. He was a teacher of Sangomas, and one of his students did some fortune telling for me. She actually got it pretty accurate, I think. She said that there were 3 ladies I was in love with, or no, that I was interested in, one of whom lived overseas, and 2 of whom were close by. There's some elephants. That's marvelous news. Some elephants. We're just going to go a little bit up here. I'm going to show you the sun, and we're going to drive into the sun and into the elephants with any luck. Or not into them, you know what I mean. So James, yep, he did tell me a little bit about my future, but that was more just as an example. I don't generally seek out the help of the traditional healers too much. So there you've got an idea of the beautiful sun and the mountains, and we'll just see if you can't hear those elephants before we drive a little bit closer to them. It is just fantastic. And you'll notice how in the summertime, Andrew, be quiet, I'm trying to create an atmosphere. You'll notice, you know, you sometimes can't choose the people you work with. In the summertime, because there's no smoke and smog in the sky, you'll notice the sunsets are a lot yellower. They're not that bright red orange color. I think it's really subtle and beautiful. I can just hear the elephants browsing off to the right of us. Let's go and have a look at them. Very nice, Andrew. You'll forgive me. Don't do it again. While we see if we can get into a position where we can look at the elephants, let's head across to Brent. There's no better way to enjoy a sunset than on foot. I'll see you now, hopefully with some enormous patterns to show you.
So it's such a spectacular evening. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to find any more tracks of Karula in the block, and it is getting to that time of the evening where it goes from being a wonderful walking experience to a very scary one. So we're slowly making our way back towards where we parked the car, but we just wanted you to join us. I mean, just look at this light, and being on foot in nature is just something so special. As amazing as it is to watch animals from the vehicle, being on foot is just this completely different experience. You really connect to the earth. And while we're making our way back towards the vehicle, Ben, who's 14 years old, hi Ben, it says, when was the first time I can remember seeing a lion? And how did it make me feel? Well, Ben, that's quite a difficult question for me. I can't really remember exactly when I saw a lion for the first time. But probably one of the most distinct memories. Sorry, 1 second, guys. Okay. We're going to keep walking. It sounds like there's some buffalo or elephant that side. And as I said, it's getting a bit late and the sun's dipping, so we're just going to move a little bit further away and down into this open area here. So Ben, sorry, back to your question. And one of the most memorable occasions is that we were on the reserve that myself and my family lived in Zululand, which is near the Mozambique border of South Africa, but down on the coast. And we were sitting in the back of a pickup, but a closed pickup, and there was a friend of my
Brian, we had a marvelous sighting of the elephants. They went into some thick bush and I didn't want to crash in after them, so we're just going to nip around to the side here and see if we can't get a view of them coming out of the bush. We're now on the very far southwestern corner of Juma, where the sun is setting in a marvelous array of ginger and honey-coloured rays. In here, there they are. They're just coming out there. Substantial range of that fella. About the same size as one of his legs. Right, here are the beautiful elephants. I'm going to stand by over here. There we go. Is that right, Andrew? And we'll just watch them silently move towards us. There's some youngsters there. They seem to be on their way somewhere when we saw them first. And I wonder, I don't know of any water particularly close by. Look at that, it's a little breeding herd. And we had a question the other day about what a breeding herd is. A breeding herd, of course, is the females, related females, and their associated offspring. No big bulls with the herd permanently. Only if some of the females are in estrus will the big bulls hang around here. This is wonderful. Yeah, I'm not going to move just yet. This is beautiful. It's just a little herd. 2 little babies. And this, I suspect, young bull. Just checking us out. Hi. Sorry, let me just quickly turn. Ooh, bigger one in front of us there. Sorry, little chaps. Wendy made a grinding noise that gave them all a bit of a fright, I'm afraid. Stop here. Oh, let me go forward. There we go. Another one coming across, very widely splayed tusks has that little one. Well, let's quickly nip across to Brent. He's got something interesting to show you. I'll stay with the elephants and see you just now.
So, sorry, we just disappeared there for a second, but just over my shoulder we found a friend on our way back to the vehicle. Nice big male giraffe. And he's watching us, making sure we're not posing any threats to him. You can see, very still. And off he goes on his evening business. So we're not going to try to follow him, we're going to let him go. We've got to keep moving back to the car, and we will go straight back to James now, and we'll catch up with you a little later.
Hi. Just moving towards a bull here. I said that there were no bulls with the herd. I obviously lied by mistake. Here looks to be a relatively mature bull. It's not a very big one. Please don't be a cow and embarrass me. No, it is a bull. Just sneak up here. Stop. Now they're going next door, I'm afraid, so we can't follow them. There's some more just up ahead. That's a bull probably about 20 years old, so he's on his own in life. He's not allowed to be with the herd anymore because he's a bit old. He's been thrown out of the nest, as it were, and he might spend time on the fringes of a herd, but mostly he'll probably spend time with other bulls his own age or with much older bulls who will show him the ways of being an adult bull elephant. Oh, isn't he lovely? Wonderful sound. That, of course, is a quintessential shot of Africa, the back end of a bull. And a little bird waiting patiently that you can see there, a fork-tailed drongo, just waiting to see if the elephant doesn't dislodge some kind. It's not a fork-tailed drongo, it's a piece of burnt stick. Please ignore what I've said. Let's move forward. Thank you, Andrew. Did you know it was a piece of stick?
I had my suspicions that it
You did you? And you thought you'd just zoom in anyway, did you? Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. The next Ziziphus bush we come past is going to have most of you left on it. Again, like I say, they are next door, so we can't go driving in there after them. Beautiful. Enjoying the fresh leaves. Normally, in fact, they've been eating this variable bush willow tree, and that seems to be, oh, she might be eating a red bush willow, but we did a taste test the other day of two of the greenest bush willow trees out here, one the variable and one the red bush willow, and it was definitely tastier. The variable was much less tannin rich, and the elephants certainly seem to be preferring that at the moment over the red bush willow tree. Now, the elephant's trunk is the most important part of its anatomy in terms of feeding and drinking and communicating and smelling, of course. An extended nose, quite astonishing evolutionary adaptation, and there is an elephant around here that has a shorter trunk, and you can hear her coming because she breathes with like a sort of blocked nose almost, and she's missing the end of her trunk. It doesn't have that very prehensile tip that allows her to pick things up. Otherwise, she seems entirely fine. And Sue and Shelby in North Carolina, you watched a documentary yesterday that on Nat Geo channel that showed a female elephant being bitten by a crocodile as she was drinking. And you want to know if that's possibly how our short-tailed or short-trunked elephant lost her trunk. Sue and Shelby, it's quite possible. That's actually a really good thought as to what happened. Perhaps as a calf drinking in a waterhole, perhaps a little bit too deep, perhaps at the water in the Sand River where there's a lot more place for crocodiles to hide than in some of the dams that are around here. And perhaps a crocodile then grabbed the trunk and bit a piece of it off. That's certainly well possible. But it does amaze me the way animals are able to adapt out here and cope with what must be utterly horrendous pain. and slowly heal. It really is astonishing. We've had some lovely contributions from our younger viewers today, the two budding herpetologists, one in Missouri and the other in the Netherlands, neither of which I think are reptile hotspots of the world, but hopefully you'll get to spend some time with reptiles. Sarah, was it 14-year-old Ben, and now from little Gracie, aged 8, in Ohio. Gracie, you say you want to touch an elephant's earlobe one day. Gracie, it's very important with wild animals that we don't get too close to them because it normally makes them scared of us. And some places do capture wild animals and keep them in sort of captivity, and they do allow people to touch them. But sometimes those places aren't really the best places for elephants. But you might be able to touch an elephant's earlobe in, say, a rehabilitation center. Maybe there's a young elephant that's being raised. Maybe it was an orphan, and some places do have very important roles to play like that, so they'll keep elephants in areas where you can interact with them and touch them, but that's normally only in medical facilities, so like a small animal hospital. So maybe you'll be able to do it. I know of a very good one in Zambia where they try and release the elephants back into the wild, so maybe you can touch an elephant's earlobe, but you must be very careful about where you do that, because there are places around that well, and sometimes not so nice for the animals to live in them. So you need to be very careful about that. And certainly, Gracie, you must never try and touch the lobe of a wild elephant. They wouldn't like that at all. Right, I think what we're going to do is turn around and head back towards the lions and see if they aren't, they don't deign to perhaps lift their heads or so. Right, here we go. I'm just going to call myself into that sighting. I'd like to make my way there, Andrew. Are you? Okay, they are at the junction. You know that shortcut road that goes from the shortcut to Bubu Road, past the water hole? Right in the drainage line there. Right, there's no one there now, so let's get in there. It's the same from Gallagher shortcut to Bubu Road. It's the same distance, so whatever's easier for you. Right, let us go and see what they're doing. The sun has gone down, the temperature is dropping slowly. I don't think it's going to be cold tonight by any stretch, but certainly the coolth and the lack of light will hopefully inspire those lions to do something exciting. While we're driving at high speed, Leo Smith the Bold is with, I think, an elephant on foot, which is very exciting. We'll see you just now.
Go on. Up. Okay. Sorry guys, that eddy's just moved off. We're very close to the car, so just join us as we make it to the car. We might get a glimpse of him moving away. Beautiful. And our tracking vehicle. But it's been really great having you guys with us on this walking safari. Unfortunately, we didn't find any more Karula. She decides to a little really nice.
Back with us. We're on the way to the lions. I'm not sure what happened with Brent. It really is slightly irksome that the lack of signal on that little pack. I might take to it with a hammer a little bit later today and see if that doesn't sort the problem out. Definitely a marked change in temperature. Andrew, are you putting a jersey on? Andrew says he's putting on a jersey one time. That's not in fact any discernible language that I know. I think what it means is he's going to put his jacket on. Don't want to get to the lions after they've started to move, of course. Of course, every day we drive along here, I find that I learn from our audience, and of course while we're driving along and looking at the animals and spending extended periods with animals, I mean we see elephants just about every day, and as Elaine in Michigan has just pointed out, she said the spine of an elephant really sticks out. She can't think of another animal that has that, where there's such a prominent ridge down the back. Elaine, I haven't thought of it like that. I've often noticed the spine, but I've never kind of thought no other animal has that. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think, I mean, kudu sometimes in the shoulders, they do have a very obvious ridge sort of around the shoulders here, but not all the way down to the back. It's absolutely correct. I don't know why that is. Sometimes rhino, actually, you know that. Big rhino bulls, white rhino bulls have a similar kind of ridge down the back. But otherwise, you're absolutely right. I don't know why that is. I can't think of a reason offhand. Right, we're not too far from those lines, probably about 5 or 7 minutes. That little piece of infrastructure that you can see is a pump that sends water to Juma Camp and of course to one of our little staff houses where Brent and Jamie and Scott and Nikki and Eugenius live. Every time I drive up this road, tree there, you just start to see coming into the picture now on the left hand side. I always think it's a herd of buffalo going across the road. Certainly a buffalo, and it's always just a fallen marula tree. It never changes. Well, there's some primates up ahead. They seem to be watering themselves. Possibly having a feed as well. Okay, we're going to nip quickly across to Brent. I think he's got a really lovely sighting, so we're going to try once more with Brent, and I'll keep going to the lions. Good luck. You are, and back you are. We haven't got substantially further from when you last saw us, of course. But just before we continue to the lions, I just wanted to show you that the zebra that we looked at earlier have come onto quarantine clearings. There they are. So the impala, and there's a little herd of wildebeest the other side that are probably going to make their way onto the clearings as well. I hope for their sake that the lions choose buffalo over these clearings full of a smorgasbord of different antelope and equid species to eat. The lions are not far from here. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, we're going to try once more with Brent, and then, well, maybe I'll be with the lions, I don't know. Good luck.
So we're going to make this very quick. Thanks very much for joining us. Unfortunately, we are having signal difficulties, but I really want to share this incredibly special moment with you guys. And there's a nice big ellie bull, completely relaxed, drinking opposite us. And we've got hippos in the water hole. And it is just one of these moments that makes life so special. It's incredibly peaceful. And he's completely aware that we're here. I mean, I'm sitting right out in the open opposite him, and Brian's standing behind me, and as you can see, he's completely unperturbed with our presence. And that is the great thing about ellie bulls. They know this. And also they feel safe because there's water between us. So we're not putting any sort of threat on him, and he's not putting any threats on us. Now, this is definitely the best way for me to end a walking safari, sitting quietly in the twilight with one of the most magnificent animals in the world. Another incredibly tough day in the office. I think we're just going to sit silently here for a little bit before I say my final goodbye, and just really enjoy this spectacular scene in front of us. And looks like he's had his drink. So thanks very much for coming with us, even though we did have a few little glitches today. Hopefully we can get them sorted out as soon as possible. And a couple of safaris ago I got asked to describe Africa in one word, and I described it as home. And I can even go further than that. Being in a place like this every day at a time like this, how could anyone not love it? But good night, and we'll see you on the sunrise safari.
Back towards Gallagher Camp. Hi everyone, just stand by one. I will address you shortly. The lions have moved. Apparently they're popping up here. They are moving up here. This is wonderful news. Probably, thank you. I'm at the waterfall now. Right, here come the lions. Confirm they're on the road there. I'm going to stand by here. Apparently they're coming through. Here they are, right in front of us. Marvellous. Yeah, Andrew, we got them here. They're just in front of us here. Look at that, isn't that lovely? Andrew, will you just tell me if you want the lights on them? Ooh, sorry, that's my bonds. Are you happy with this light?
Some light would be good.
Some light. Open this out a bit. Diffuse the light slightly. And there they go. Lions on the hunt. Marvellous. They are smelling and hearing things that you and I could only dream to smell and hear. They have got such sharp senses. I hear. So they're going into a pretty thick area, I have to say. And whether we'll be able to follow them or not, I don't know. But we'll probably pick them up on the other side. And you can see there, that's Gallagher Camp just behind. And they're walking straight past the camp. We had a question earlier about whether there's a dominant lioness that leads the hunt or leads the pride. There isn't. The oldest lioness in this pride is the tailless lioness, who's just coming up behind there. There she is. But you can see one of the others has taken the lead and is pulling them on through the thicket. He thinks he's a bit thirsty. Can have a drink. Well, one of them's turned around and gone the other way completely. That's fascinating. I wonder if she hasn't seen something. So two young males having a drink, thinking only of their stomachs or their immediate needs. The lionesses are clearly thinking of the hunt. Two of them gone off into the thickets there, and one of them has turned round and gone completely the opposite direction. Where she's gone, I couldn't tell you. Let me move, get a bit closer for you. Stick with these chaps as long as we can. Into the darkness. Isn't that lovely? Makes them look so genteel the way they drink. Quite unlike most of their other behaviours. So while we wait and see what these lions are going to do, they're heading off into the darkness, and of course one doesn't want to be face to face with the lion in the darkness. We wouldn't track them at night on foot at all. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to head around. Andrew, I'm just going to go around there. I'll keep you posted. The thicket's not very long. Okay. While we're driving round, hang on a second, there's a hyena. You'll be following the lions, just to see if they don't kill something. I'm going to leave the hyena, everyone. I don't want to lose the lions coming through the bush on the other side. Monique, I was just telling a story earlier about when the first time I saw a lion on foot, and that was a question from Ben, aged 14, and how it made me feel. You want to know if I think the lion can sense fear. I don't think they can sense fear. Maybe they can. They can certainly read body language though. So I have absolutely no doubt that exactly like with a dog that is growling at you, if you show it fear, especially when you're on foot as opposed to in a vehicle, I have no doubt that they can figure that out pretty quickly. But I think it's more body language than it is sort of an energetic sense, but it may be a bit of both. Now, Andrew, do tell me if you spot the lion. So they're coming through what is a horrendously thick block here. There's a bush baby. There it is. You see it? And there, it's hiding. Let's leave the bush baby. Try and see if we can't spot the lions. I'm sorry, I didn't even tell you what a bush baby was. A bush baby is a little primate, the smallest primate that we get out here. It looks like a little koala bear or a lemur. Galago is their proper name. Cameron, aged 5. It's a little primate, like a little monkey almost. That's what a primate is. Very difficult to see. I mean, we see their eyes flashing at night, but unless you're right behind the spotlight, which of course none of you are, you won't see them very easily. This road is always longer than I think it is. Now, the lions should pop out here, either going up the road or towards quarantine clearings.
Then it will be trouble.
Just coming through in this direction. Can't see their tracks on the road. Just look down there. I don't see. Is that a lion? Or is it a piece of grass? A piece of grass. Right, let's carry on. I think maybe they've crossed over there, headed towards quarantine clearings. It's just impossible to get through that particular area. And while sometimes we do sound, there's some eyes, while sometimes we do sound a little frustrated by the inability to find animals, Barbara, as you say in Potchefstroom, there is a bushbuck. No, kudu. Not a kudu. Nyala. Jeez, I'm really on fire today. Nyalas, don't go that way. It's not a good idea. So, as I've said, we do get a little frustrated sometimes, but we do possibly have the best job in the world. And Barbara, you say that you'd quite like to come and volunteer for us, perhaps just to hold the flashlight. That would be very good, thank you. I'm just not sure where you'd sit in the Land Rover. But yes, we do have the best job in the world. We love doing it, and we're so very glad that you enjoy watching it. Now, where are these lions? I'm just going to get hold of Andrew quickly, tell him that I haven't spotted them coming out here. Andrew, come in. Andrew, I haven't got them coming out of this thicket. Have you spotted them at all? Okay, copy that. I'll keep it close. I don't think they would have come this far yet, you know. They might have. We're very close to where we live, by the way. going to do a loop around the same area. Now it's difficult to know if they were coming this way or they're going to turn around and go towards the buffalo. The buffalo are straight up towards Sydney's Dam, or they certainly were, which is just north of us. And these lions may well head to quarantine clearings. It would be a good place for a lion to hunt. You know, not very good on a night like this. There's a bit of light from a crescent moon, and the clearing, of course, makes it much easier for the lions to be seen by potential prey. This is most frustrating. This block is so thick, I've lost so many animals going into it because you just cannot follow them in. So please bear with me. Seek out their tracks well. Can't see any tracks on the road. There. No, those are the Nyala that we saw earlier, Andrew.
What?
The Nyala. Nyalas, you don't want to be here right now. See any lion tracks here? May well just be circling the block in search of those nyalas. This is certainly where they were headed. Oh, how deeply frustrating. No tracks on the road. This is zebra. Don't make a mistake with zebra, Andrew. They're the stripy ones that look like horses. Andrew? Any bright plans?
Patience.
Patience. Okay, good point. Thank you. Here comes Andrew the ranger as opposed to Andrew the cameraman. He hasn't spotted it either. Really getting into this block can be very difficult indeed. So we'll be very careful and see if we can't see their tracks coming out somewhere. We haven't seen them yet. There are the Nyala. Question. Driving along here. There we go, right there. Lion coming. Andrew, they're just here to the left-hand side. Right, we'll wait for them to come straight towards us. We saw that hyena. Now the hyena has an extremely powerful bite, as we all know. And Tony, you want to know what's the most powerful out here? Basically, is it lion or leopard or hyena? Hyena proportionately by far the strongest, then probably the lions, then the leopards, and then the cheetah. So what we don't want to do is give away their position to potential prey. Likewise, we don't want to blind the prey. So I don't know if you can see that. You can't see their eyes shining there, can you, Andrew?
No.
You can't see the lions at all.
No.
Okay, so the lions are in there. There, you can see the movement there. There we go. Here they come. Silent. Listening, smelling, all the time. I'll just every so often shine the light directly on them. They're going away from quarantine clearings at the moment, but straight towards where those nyala leapt across the road. I wish you could get behind the... I'm just going to put the spotlight closer to the camera and see if you can't see the eyes that I saw coming through the bush. It's just amazing to see.
Here we go.
Did you see the eyes?
Yeah.
And here's the that's the tailless lion. There's another one coming in front of us here. Totally silent on that. Yawning, of course. Always tired. Now we've turned. Very quiet and moving now onto the road towards quarantine clearings. Dun, da, da, da. There's another one. Sorry, Andrew. I'm just going to move the car. Get out of the way of other Andrew, who needs to see the lions as well, of course. Listening, smelling all the time, and looking. Now what they're seeing is pretty much an infrared picture, if you like. It'll be black and white, but much more contrasted than the view you're getting. Oh dear, one of the males has got tired. You're going to have a lie down. Oh dear, the exertions of walking, 150 metres has made them very tired. You can go a little bit closer. One of them is utterly exhausted. heading straight towards quarantine clearings, where there was zebra, wildebeest, impala. Wouldn't like to be one of them right now. And in the manner of all sort of pre-teen/teenagers, the young males would rather be lying down, doing not a great deal. Okay. There we go. Where they head now, whether they cross this road and go straight up. Now they've gone straight into the bush there. Trying to decide what to do. Well, we can try and go there actually. Let's try and head into that block. Not going to be very easy. Okay, the Land Rover has the same turning circle as a, well, pretty much the same as an oil tanker. So we'll follow straight in after them. Well, hope you don't get stuck. Right. This is where they went. See them anywhere, Andrew? Oh dear. Oh, there they are. Cool, we've got them, Andrew. Watch out. While we're driving through here, just a quick recap. This is the Salala Pride, 3 young males, 3 females, and one of them does have a wound on his bottom. And Claudia in Brazil, welcome. Lovely to have you with us, all the way from South America. And you want to know how he got it? I think the best suspect is probably a hyena that bit him at a kill. There's the... Now they're splitting. They're kind of fanning. They're fanning into a kind of this sort of typical lion hunting formation. One of them going around the side, and maybe she'll chase something towards the others. Well, there's one right here. Not more than 4 feet from the vehicle now. Look how close that is. Now these young males have just got to the stage where they're not a hindrance on the hunt anymore. They'll actually be quite useful. Smelling, listening. One of them's gone off. The most experienced huntress has gone off to the side, and she might try and chase something towards them. They're listening all the time. Now, if we do spot a prey species of some kind, we'll turn the lights off, I'm afraid, and then we'll sit and we'll just listen. Yeah. So they're just listening carefully. You can see the ears pricked forward to where the tailless lioness has gone. She's still about maybe 10 feet from us. You can't hear them move even sitting here. almost entirely silent as they move through the bush. Exciting stuff. Walking through, you've seen how close some of the lions get here, and Laura, you want to know what it feels like to have a lion stare you straight in the eyes. Laura, it's happened to me a few times. Once or twice I felt a little nervous. Most of the time it just looks like there's not a great deal behind those eyes, I have to say. So, sorry about the tree. It will pop up behind us, I promise you. It's an Acacia exuvialis, very hardy tree, encroacher species. Not too worried about them. We do try and avoid any of the more kind of rare species. Rulers and the tambutis. There they are. Look, there's a big hole. Coming a little further along. We're going to stay behind. I don't want to get too close towards the front of the hunting pack. There's a tree over there. I'm sorry.
One next door.
Oh, hello. That's so wonderful. I think she's pregnant. See that?
Another one next door.
Another one next to us. And another one coming next to us. Oh, sorry, Andrew. You're making a mess of these lights here. Now, these young males will eventually grow up to be, hopefully for them, strapping young fellows, and they'll take a territory of their own. And of course, lion territory takeovers are, well, they're things of great evil. That's the one with the injury on his backside. And a little while back, there was a coalition called the Mapocho males. There were also 5, originally 6 males that came in, much like the Birminghams, and caused enormous upheaval. They killed a lot of lionesses. In fact, I think they killed more than 10. And Yasmin in Las Vegas, you've clearly been paying attention for many years. You want to know who are their descendants. It's difficult to tell at this stage because they've been out of the loop for a long time. I mean, they've eventually ousted by a group called the Majingalane males, but there will be a number of lionesses. I think this tailless lioness might actually be an offspring of the Mapocho. So you might find some of the adults in this pride are offspring of the Mapocho. There will be lots of them around. It's always a little bit, we've got to be very careful when we follow lions hunting, of course. We do make a bit of a noise, there's no question. The vehicle does smell, and hiker in Wisconsin, you want to know if perhaps the human smell masks the smell of prey. No, not the human smell. It won't mask the smell of prey. The smell of the Land Rover might. It's possible. I mean, obviously, they can't smell human from where they are because all they've got is the smell of petrol and brake fluid and oil and various other things. But they hunt mainly by sight. And that's why we don't worry too much about it, hiker. We don't worry that we're creating a major issue for them because they hunt largely by sight and not so much by smell. But we do have to be sensitive, and there's no question that I have seen the odd hunt certainly go awry through some insensitive driving. It mainly just comes with experience that you know what does that. Lions on the hunt, possibly at night, is one of the most exciting things you can look at. Gecko, is that your name? gecko. This is a very odd name. But, yes, you say this is epic. I agree with you completely. Paul Rizzo, you say where not even the paying customers get to go. Yeah, we try and do that too. Because these little Land Rovers are so nimble, they're able to go just about anywhere. That little squirting noise you heard was Andrew cleaning the lens, everyone. It wasn't some kind of animal death or snake about to bite us, was it, Andrew?
No, just a few bugs on the lens.
A few bugs on the lens. Young male there, hanging out at the back. Comments and queries today about lions looking one in the eye, and what's the first impression that I had from a lion, and how did they make me feel, and what does it feel like to stare into the eyes of a lion. And Jill, you think that when lions are not feeling threatened, they don't look so threatening. I think that's probably true, you know. You say when they're feeling threatened, however, it's a very different kettle of fish. Just watch your head there. So you said that you reckon it's quite gentle. I'm not sure that I would describe a lion's look ever as being particularly gentle, to be honest, except when they're very little. Certainly they can look a lot more menacing when they're threatened or when they're angry, irritated, or when their blood is up. Perhaps they've been fighting or they've been on the hunt. Yeah, they've stopped again. Another one's gone forward. They're moving in a sort of leapfrogging pincer movement, if you like. Yeah, let's go a little bit forward. This one's gone through here, perhaps to chase something towards the others, which are now waiting behind us. Doing a bit of a loop around. I'm of course now getting horribly disorientated as we drive in the night. I can't see the sky very well because I'm staring at the lions. Oh, every time I turn off. So there they are. Don't want to get too close, like I said. And try and be as sensitive as possible. And there they go off into the darkness. They've turned almost 180 degrees again. Just reaffirming their social bonds with a quick greeting rub. Sorry, Andrew, go again with that. Turned around and they're heading back towards where I last saw you. So, Gerda, we were just chatting earlier about the mapocho, wonderful attention paying and care paid to these lions all the way from Las Vegas. And Gerda, you're I think in the Netherlands if I'm not mistaken, and you say you saw the kinky tail, who was one of the mapocho males, mating with a lioness way back in 2007, and you say, could this tailless lioness be one of those offspring? Sorry, hold on a second. It could well be. Gerda, go ahead. Now I've got them here, Andrew. They're now heading back towards WildEarth access. So Gerda, I think it's quite possible that that tailless lioness could be one of their offspring. It's well possible. There they all are. So we're going to have to leave you fairly soon, I'm afraid. Find out where we are. I'm actually slightly confused as to where we are. Andrew, any ideas? I think this is Zoe's road, isn't it? Wrong radio. Andrew, they're now on Zoe's. They are on Zoe's now, heading back towards WildEarth. Oh no, they're not. I'm talking nonsense. Yeah, they're now turned onto quarantine. They've gone up Zoe's. So wonderful. Now, there is quarantine clearings in front of us there. There are a whole lot of animals there waiting, and I don't think that this is the best place for them to be honest. I think they're going to have a tough time hunting in such an open clearing.
We don't need the light change.
Thank you, Andrew. Now, Andrew, best access is to come on a 2-track to the south of quarantine. Otherwise, you'll get me visual from WildEarth access. Right, everybody. We'll stay with these lions for a little bit longer and see what they do. I don't think that they're going to have a successful hunt this evening, but I might be wrong. Well, certainly not now, but we'll wait with them a bit longer. Anyway, thank you, everybody. We're going to have to leave you now, I'm afraid. Wonderful contribution. Thank you for your time, mainly, and for your questions and comments. Thank you very much, Andrew, Brent, and Steph, and Brian on the other vehicle, and of course, Tara and Louise in the final control. Mostly, thank you for your time. We'll see you tomorrow morning on the dawn safari, 5:30. Hopefully bright, definitely very early, and wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us. Stay safe, stay happy, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.